Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Captain America issue 30. And I didn't really enjoy this issue. Not because of the ideas that it tried to convey in it, but how it was executed and kind of like how it was used to end out this arc. Because in the beginning, we had the Power Elite and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, new kind of group, made up of some of the older kind of players or whatnot, or different kind of players from different kind of fields. We'll have to kind of see how their whole tactics and everything kind of like work out and shake out. And the thing is, this thing went on for so long, slow burn style, that the pacing kind of went what, and then we just shifted to your normal kind of take on the Red Skull. And that's not a bad thing, but you need to do something a little bit different with it and kind of showcase what you're trying to say with it. They do showcase that here, but it's just done in a kind of like boring kind of manner. Because when we get into it, it's just Steve and the Red Skull talking over a dinner thing. And granted, that could be done in a really fun and engaging way. But here, it just is like, alright, this is how we're ending this arc and ending this creative team's run on this. Okay. And to be honest with you, the beginning and everything that kind of like works out to the end just really kind of proves that they fridged Alexa Lukin and just switched her out with Sin, who is now going to at the end be going by Superior. And I'm just like, what was the point then of Alexa doing her stuff if she was just going to be like Magic Woman 1 and then shifted after Magic Woman 2? It was very kind of strange because she's talking about like the difference in power structures between men and women and how men are soft by having power pretty much bestowed upon them. And it's like, okay, I could understand her view on that. It's just like you're really opening yourself up to like some like smackdowns later on if you keep going on with that assumption, especially with how Steve works out with his stuff, because she's talking about like it's mainly people without power that understand how power is pretty much used, and Steve's a big example of that, and pretty much is trying to get Sin to view the world her way, where she's viewing it with like brute force and everything as she's talking about, because she was taught by men with all this, with like the Red Skull in particular, and that she's going to open up her magical stuff and everything like that, and she's got to pretty much advise her father and everything like that and use him to do whatever their fucking goal was, because that's not even really kind of made clear either. It's kind of like the usual kind of Red Skull stuff of, make my new order. How and why? For what purpose? I don't know. Because I'm the Red Skull kind of shit. And Alexa evidently knew that she was going to be taken out at some point, or pretty much had an inkling that it was going to happen, to set this whole thing up. And as we're seeing, as this whole flashback plus what's going on present day, we see Steve pretty much working his way through the Watchdogs and taking down Crossbones. And it's really kind of weird because Crossbones is like, yeah, I'm gonna my girl had you like blubbering and stuff like that. I'm like, we really need to have like seen that. And it's like really kind of stupid for Crossbones to even kind of like say that, because he has crossed paths with Steve Rogers so much. And it's just like, really? I mean, granted, he'd probably try and do some kind of psych tactics on him to just like kind of get him out, but Steve still whoops his ass, and then of course gets into the Red Skull's kind of dinner table, and then they pretty much talk about like the whole situation, saying that Steve's like, if you were gonna like call them off, why didn't you just invite me in and save you some furniture and save Crossbones some lumps? He's like, an audience with me has to be earned. And they pretty much talk about like what he was trying to do. He's just using the people online that have pretty much been left open to be susceptible to those kinds of things, to build his empire, blood and soil and all that stuff, being death and a scourge to the weak and everything. And Steve owns up that like he's not blaming the internet. He's like, no, you're free to spew your hate, They're free to listen to it. It's just we left the generation open to that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, that's a very good point. However, in this comic, they don't even try and provide some kind of counter answer to that point. They just keep that kind of point open. And not necessarily do you have to have some kind of concrete answer, but some kind of dialogue with it of like, okay, here's the Red Skull's way, Richie says he's right and Steve's wrong, and that they're like men that like they both have the same purpose, betterment of humanity. It's like, yeah, you can kind of argue that fact, but you're kind of just doing your own kind of crazy shit because you want to, kind of thing. And they pretty much are like, oh, okay, Steve's pretty much wearing something that's broadcasting everything to the internet. As Red Skull's like, pretty much screw my followers. I get to use them as like whatever I want, and they give me money and bodies and shit like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm good. And it's like, Steve's like, yeah, okay, cool. Let's get this out. And then gets teleported out. Everything was like done on his channel as well, and it pretty much evaporates enough that it's not as big of a problem. But people are like, yeah, they're still following, saying that they still believe in the Red Skull and all that. And Steve's like, come on. It's like, yeah, it's a hard war. You gotta fight that kind of, like, nihilistic, suicidal tendency. And they're talking about, like, all their different kind of hurts that they have suffered under the Red Skull. And one other kind of weird-ass thing was that we see that evidently it was the Foreigner working with the Kingpin that took out Alexa. We see that little bit. It's like, okay. I didn't think that was that big of a point that we needed a like page to kind of devote to it, but all right. And that Steve was okay with Sharon doing it that way. It's like Steve made such a point of going after and capturing Alexa and capturing the Red Skull to stop them for their crimes. And then he's just okay with Sharon doing this? It's just like, alright, you kind of undo your argument there. I mean, granted, Steve shouldn't be like yelling at her or anything, but like you compromised our positions with this and pretty much showed that we would follow the same tactics as them, and then it just keeps that kind of cycle going. That's why Steve wanted to not do it that way. It's very strange to do that. Then they also talk about like the cartoonist with the wolves and the sheep, and Steve brings up Upton Sinclair with like you can't get a man to kind of change something with his salary is dependent on him not understanding that kind of thing. And it's just like, oh, okay. Kind of a weird way to end that with Steve and Co. And then we go to the end and we see Lucan being pissed off of like, Sin, why didn't you save Alexa? And then she's like, screw you, father. I'm gonna be named Superior now, and I'm gonna write everything in like blood and shit like that. Rah, 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 rah. She goes very villainy kind of at the end. I'm like, God damn it. So I had hopes for this arc in the beginning, and then it kind of lost its momentum. I still was entertained, but this ending was just like, alright. It wasn't the complete worst kind of thing, because there are good and interesting ideas in here. It's just its execution and the dialogue for it just didn't add up right, in my opinion. So this is now over, so we'll kind of see what the other kind of creative team they'll get for Cap will be doing. Until then, we've got, of course, the United States of Captain America, which I like that they got kind of a clear goal. I mean, granted, this one had kind of a clear goal with the whole Power Elite, but I think that has kind of a more straightforward plot that they're going to go for. So we'll see how that kind of works out. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.